All right, let's talk about the Denver Broncos, who they won a Super Bowl almost 10 years ago now at this point, in 2015 with Peyton Manning. Manning retired, and they kind of were irrelevant for a while, and in these past 2 years, they've been very relevant, but not for the right reasons. Obviously, trading for Russell Wilson, that has not worked out. So where do they go from here? And I actually want to start off talking about Russell Wilson himself. I think that's kind of the main point of this. I feel like on a lot of these videos, I kind of bring up, like, quarterback is a lot of what matters, and it's almost like the main thing that matters. And for them, it's a different scenario. It's not about getting a quarterback, although it is a little bit, but it's also about what do they do with the one they currently have. This is the contract details. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to display this on the screen. I might just put it over my face, but you see the contract itself. 2024, that's what this upcoming season is. If they were to not do anything, keep him on the roster, the cap hit is actually just $35 million. That's honestly probably pretty reasonable. And I think you could even say last year he probably outperformed the $22 million cap number. He was all right last year. He was. But, you obviously look at 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028, and that's where things start to get scary. So you really have if the options are either cut him or keep him, I feel like the two main things you would look at is, do you keep him for one more year? Because if you do, you're not adding on any extra money to your cap by cutting him in the following season, right? You have him play this year. The following year, you just cut him. You'd save about $5 million in cap space. Still owe him, $50 million. But then you're kind of done. Then you can wash your hands. It is what it is. You also could say, you know what? Let's just wash your hands of it now. Let's pay the $85 million all this year, and then next year we're good to go again. There is the other option, which is, what if they can get out of this without having to cut him? Like I said, Russell Wilson played all right last year. Is it possible you can trade him? This is what the details would look like for a trade. So you'd see that the dead money, if they got rid of him in 2024, would be $68 million. So still a lot, but now you're only adding $32 million to the cap. So it's negative $32 million in cap savings is what it says on the screen. So, that's certainly something you can look at if you can find a way to make a trade work. But the other thing I always mention with these trades is that trades don't exactly work the way that they do, like in the video game, where like the trade is the trade and the details are just, it's how it has to work, end of discussion. In real life, a lot of times these contracts result in some details getting rearranged, right? Let's say that the Steelers want to trade for Russell Wilson. Well, the Broncos might say, listen, we need you to take on more of this cap. Like, we don't want to have to pay an extra $32 million this following season. So maybe you have to front that money right off the bat. And so the Steelers will pay that money in, and that could be a part of the trade. Again, the question is, how well did Russell Wilson play this year to get some of that off the books? And my guess would be, if a team does want to trade for him, they might be willing to do it if there is kind of just, they'll pay some of the money, but then the Broncos still have to front some of the other money, kind of to work out a deal to where a team might get Russell Wilson on essentially the contract they would have given him in free agency anyways, but now the Broncos don't have to pay him that money, and maybe the compensation for the draft capital itself wouldn't be too great. I think that's possible. Again, you could keep him if you want to for another year, but given that he was kind of benched last year, I doubt they're going to do that. So that's the Russell Wilson of it all. But what about he's one player on the team. What about the rest of it? If you look at their financial situation, this is where things get a little tricky. And again, part of why cutting him this year might be a little tough is if you're going to add $50 million onto your cap, they're currently at negative $16 million in cap space, and they only have about $30 million in cash. Now, you wouldn't add any extra money to that cash, only the cap space situation, but you probably have to kick the can down the road, and in a weird way, it might actually even be better if you just waited a year for the cap in just a weird scenario. It might not too, but that's just, unless you're going to clear up a lot of space, that's kind of the situation you're in. And they could clear up space. They have guys that they could get rid of if they wanted to. These players are just a handful of them. Next to their names is how many millions of dollars it would save to cut them. Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, and DJ Jones would all save $10 million. backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham, who might be starting quarterback Jarrett Stidham if they get rid of Russell Wilson, so who knows. But you could save $5 million with a quarterback who might be a backup. That might be a place to look at if you're not competing right now, or if you're in a tough against the cap situation. That might be something to do. Again, I like Courtland Sutton. I like him for $10 million. I'm just putting him on here because it's an option. Tim Patrick, I like. He hasn't played in years though. Like at a certain point, do you cut your losses? It's an option for sure. But again, he has to be healthy. If he's still injured, then you can't cut him. So that's the other factor here. I think DJ Jones probably is gone. Probably, right? Save $10 million there. But those are some key players. What about the other side? What about players that they can, players, big free agents for them? These are the 4 key free agents that they would have to re-sign, and it's okay here. Like, this isn't a disaster. The number next to them, of course, how many millions of dollars they're projected to get in free agency. Lloyd Cushenberry, their center, who, for the most part, I believe it was like a 3rd-round pick and kind of played like it for the most, the early part of his career. Did have a career high last season. He went from kind of being like a solid, okay center who at least played a lot to a guy who was like, PFF's 10th highest graded center last year, which was definitely a big step up. But in a contract year, $14 million, I might just try to replace him through the draft. Personally, again, wonder tight against the cap. I think that's probably a decision I make. Josie Jewell actually like a decent amount at the linebacker position. I think he's good. And I think that'd be a value signing. It might be worth trying to, keep him in the building. He's only 29 years old. That's something I would look at. Adam Troutman, again, a fine tight end. Again, if you want to keep him, you can keep him. If not, you do have to replace him. So that's the other thing. Like Cam Fleming, another guy who, again, not exactly a superstar, but just someone who, if you let him walk out, he's a tackle. If you let him leave the building, you do have to replace him with someone. So, we'll see about that. But yeah, they're okay. They don't have like any pressing ways to get worse. I think that's kind of the main thing you look at, with the exception of if Russell Wilson does walk out the door, then you probably would be, worse. But maybe you're getting worse to get better. So final chart, again, just to reiterate, negative $16 million in cap space, only $30 million in total cash. And this is after the new salary cap has been implemented. A couple of my videos got outdated because I recorded them before it was announced what the salary cap is jumping up even higher than we already thought it was going to be, which was pretty high. So the $30 million in cash, they could re-sign. That's the cost of re-signing all the free agents. They could re-sign all those guys if they want to. They could clear up $35 million if they want to. You could clear up that $35 million and then kind of use it to negate the Russell Wilson buyout, essentially. You have a little bit more you'd have to clear up in cap space, but you could still at least not have to kick it down the road as much as if you just paid him next year. But yeah, they're in a bit of a tough spot. They are. They're in a bit of a tough spot, and it'll be interesting to see what they do to get out of this now through their rebuild. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from ya. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.